Luis Ortiz looks in great shape, and it's all relative at the end of the day. He don't look like Anthony Joshua, but compared to how he's looked in some of his previous fights of late, he looks in a lot better shape now, which is to be expected because it's a much bigger fight. He's training harder. He's far more motivated. He's got mouths to feed. He's got a family. So he looks in great shape. He's not going to be overawed. He's not going to be intimidated or anything like that. He's fought at the highest levels in the amateur system, and he probably feels like he's been in the ring with better fighters than Wilder when he was in Cuba. So he's going to be ready. He's going to be prepared. Deontay Wilder's also in shape, but a lot of people believe, and Deontay Wilder's always in shape. We know that. He's a top-level athlete. Even if you don't believe he's a top-level boxer, the guy is a real athlete. He's always in shape, 365. But a lot of people believe that Deontay Wilder is overlooking Luis Ortiz and taking him lightly. Well, I don't know whether or not that is actually the case. But one thing I do know is that Deontay Wilder's team are not overlooking Luis Ortiz. Deontay Wilder's team are not taking Luis Ortiz lightly. And one indication of this is the fact that Mark Breland is featuring far more in Deontay Wilder's training than he normally does. Mark Breland has always been attached to the Deontay Wilder camp, but you've seen him in training with Wilder more for some fights than for others. And I haven't seen Mark Breland with Wilder in so much training footage since the first Berman-Stavern fight. I've mainly seen other guys, Jay Diaz, his manager, and stuff like that with him for a lot of his fights, but not too much of Mark Breland. But for this fight right here against Ortiz, Mark Breland is there in virtually every training clip. And that shows me that his team are serious about this. That's why they want to bring in the brains, who is Mark Breland. He is the most experienced boxing man within the Wilder team. And so they're not trying to leave nothing to chance. They're bringing the brains in because they believe they might need the brains for this particular fight. You know, they brought him in to be with Wilder constantly for the first Stavern fight because that was his first big step up. And they're doing it again here. And that to me shows that Wilder's team see Ortiz as a threat. And they're taking this fight very, very seriously. They want Wilder to be in the right place mentally. They want him to be in the right place tactically. That's the crucial thing. Tactics. They don't want Wilder to let his emotions get the better of him, as they often do. He's a very hot-headed character, Deontay Wilder. So they want to control that hot-headedness and put some more discipline back into his game, as we saw in the first Berman-Stavern fight. So I'm very much looking forward to this one. I am picking Deontay Wilder. I think he's going to win. I'm not as adamant as some other people are. As I mentioned in previous videos, people like David Haye and Peter Fury are dismissive of Luis Ortiz's chances. David Haye especially is like, I don't see Ortiz giving Wilder any problems. I think he's going to dispatch of Ortiz in a similar fashion to what he did to Berman-Stavern in his last fight. This is what David Haye's saying. And Peter Fury also is relatively dismissive of Ortiz's chances. And I've seen other top-level people in boxing saying similar things, like actual boxers themselves, like, I don't think Ortiz is going to be able to do much against Wilder. And a lot of the reason why people are dismissing Ortiz's chances, probably the major reason is because of his age. You know, they say he's old enough as it is, and he's probably even older than his stated age. So that's one of the reasons. But you don't find people saying that Ortiz is going to lose emphatically because he don't have the skills, or he don't have the power, or he don't have the technique. No, they ain't saying it because of that. They're saying it because of his age. And I think that age is probably, it's probably a little short-sighted to rely only on age if you're picking Wilder to win emphatically. You know, because Ortiz may be up there in age, but he isn't up there in miles on the clock. He hasn't had a lot of tough fights. He hasn't had a lot of fights as a professional, full stop. And this is the thing that people need to understand about boxing. Fighters are not over the hill. You know, most fighters are not over the hill at 40 just because of their age. Most fighters are over the hill at 40 because it's a combination of their age and also the miles on the clock. Because boxing is a brutal sport. The training camps are brutal. The hill runs are brutal. The punishment that you receive in sparring is brutal. Then in the fight again is brutal. The, getting down to weight, if you're not a heavyweight, for example, if you're one of the lower weights, getting down to weight, the weight cut is brutal. All this extreme training and extreme punishment and adversity that your body goes through year in, year out is what ages fighters. This is what prevents them from being at most of them being at their peak, going into their late 30s and 40s. It's not just the age. Age is part of it, but also a massive part of it is the miles on the clock and how much damage your body has taken. Luis Ortiz's body hasn't taken much damage. So for a guy of his age, however old he really is, he's fresh for that age. If he is 44 years old or whatever people are claiming, he's probably only got the body of a 37-year-old or 38-year-old, which is the age that he's actually claiming. Can you still be good enough at 37? Can you still be fresh enough? Can you still have the energy to compete with someone who's in their early 30s like Wilder? I think you can. But I'm not picking Deontay Wilder solely because of Ortiz's age, because I think he's still going to be able to be a problem for a lot of people, and he may be a problem for Wilder. I'm just looking at the styles. I'm just looking at the fact that Ortiz isn't particularly quick on his feet. I think that's an issue, to be honest with you, because Wilder is quick on his feet, and Wilder can throw very hard punches from long range. Ortiz is going to look to walk Wilder down and force some mistakes out of him. Sorry for the police sirens. And force some mistakes out of him. That's what Ortiz is going to look to do. And it's Wilder's job not to fall for the traps that Ortiz is going to set, because he is going to set traps. He's not just going to come barging forward and throwing punches with reckless abandon. He's far too well schooled for that. And if he does try that early in the fight, he's going to get clipped, and he's going to go into his shell to a certain extent and realize, well, I can't take any liberties with this guy. So Ortiz is going to fight an educated fight, and he's going to try and set traps for Wilder on the front foot and use that left hand to counter when he can. Deontay Wilder, essentially, in my mind, needs to box the same fight that he boxed against Stiverne. Ortiz is a southpaw, so the angles are not going to line up as well for Wilder. His jab, I don't think, is going to be as effective against Ortiz as it was against Stiverne, because orthodox fighters usually find it more difficult to land their jab against southpaws than they do against other orthodox fighters. So I don't think his jab is going to be as effective as it was against Stiverne in the first fight. But I do think his right hand will be more accurate than it was against Szpilka. Szpilka is the other southpaw that he faced. One of the reasons, well, I think there are two reasons why Wilder struggled to land his right hand with any kind of real force for the majority of the fight against Szpilka. The first reason is because Szpilka was moving a lot. He was moving in and out of range all the time, and that was messing up Wilder's ability to sit down on the right hand and land it the way that he wanted to land it. So Wilder was like kind of hesitating with it. When he did throw it, he didn't quite have the distance right and all that kind of thing. It's not until late in the fight, when Szpilka's feet started slowing up, that Wilder was able to land it more cleanly and eventually knock Szpilka out. So the foot movement that Szpilka had, the in and out, bouncing back and forth foot movement, Luis Ortiz don't have that. He's not as light on his feet as Artur Szpilka. Artur Szpilka's a guy who's fought a cruiserweight. Now, Ortiz has fought pretty much at cruiserweight when he was an amateur because he was 200 pounds in the amateurs. But that was a very, very long time ago. He hasn't been close to 200 pounds for many, many years. Artur Szpilka, on the other hand, fought, I believe, at cruiserweight just a couple of fights ago. So he's a guy who's much lighter on his feet than Ortiz, younger than Ortiz, and he was able to give Wilder movement, which messed up Wilder's sense of distance. I don't think Ortiz is going to be able to move like that. And I think Wilder will find it easier to land his right hand on Ortiz. He'll find it easier to find a target. He'll find it more difficult to land his jab. You know what I mean? He found it difficult to land his jab on Szpilka, and I expect the same against Ortiz. But I think he'll find it easier to land his right hand. And the second reason I think why Wilder struggled against Szpilka to land his right hand is because of the fact that Szpilka was a replacement opponent. He took Szpilka as an opponent on relatively short notice. He'd actually been training for an orthodox opponent. The guy's name escapes me at the moment, but he was a 6'5", I think, Polish fighter or Eastern European fighter from some Eastern European country. I think it was Poland. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a guy who had previously fought Alexander Povetkin. The guy was like 6'5", orthodox. That's who Wilder had been training for. So they had to bring in all these southpaw sparring partners last minute. And Wilder had to make this adjustment to fighting a southpaw in a very short space of time. And he was still trying to make that adjustment and get used to the southpaw style in the ring against Szpilka. Against Ortiz, he's not going to have that issue because he's essentially had 2 training camps full of southpaws. Because the first Ortiz fight got cancelled because of the failed PED test. He was sparring with southpaws throughout that. And now he's had another full training camp where he's also been sparring with southpaws. So I think he'll be far more used to the southpaw style than he was when he fought Szpilka. Far more prepared for it. And as I say, I don't think Ortiz has got the foot movement that Szpilka had. So I think Wilder will find it easier to find his range with the right hand. Obviously, Luis Ortiz is much more dangerous offensively than Artur Szpilka. So he presents different problems. Szpilka doesn't have the strength or the punching power that Luis Ortiz has. He doesn't have the inside game that Luis Ortiz has. And he probably doesn't have the counter-punching ability either. Luis Ortiz is a good counter-puncher with his left hand. And he'll be looking for that against Wilder. So Ortiz has got plenty of things that Szpilka ain't got. But Szpilka does have one thing that Ortiz ain't got. As I keep telling you, it's that foot movement. So, yeah, I'm rolling with Wilder. I think Wilder's going to win. I'm not going to put my neck out and say he's going to do it early and easy, like David Hay is saying. But I do think he'll win. And, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm going with Wilder. I'm saying it's 60-40 in Wilder's favor in my head. So, let me know what you think in the comment section below, people. How have you got this fight? How do you see it? Who are you picking? Tell me your rationale. Drop it all in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.